And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, author of Liberalism is a Mental Disorder, Trump's War, and God, Faith, and Reason, Michael Savage.
Despite what you read in the media, despite the sick degenerates in the so-called late-night comedy clubs on NBC, CBS, look at the crap they put on HBO and Showtime. Look at this garbage. When have you last seen anyone with a patriotic viewpoint getting a show on that channel? Tell me when. HBO or Showtime. Never. When have you last seen a Netflix production where someone like me gets a Netflix production? I could have a huge audience. I could have a monster audience with a Netflix production. Not a chance in hell, because the same people who have run HBO, who have run Showtime, who run the late-night stoners who are not funny at all, are now running Netflix. So there's no way you're going to see any of this in the mainstream media. You ought to thank God I can still do it on the radio. Let's take some callers. No nuts, Michael. No more nuts. Line 7. Mike on KSFO. I'm getting some water, Mike. Go ahead. Mike on KSFO, line 7. Talk already.
Yes, hi, Dr. Savage. This is Mike. I'm a professional comedian and comedy writer for the past 20 years, and I grew up watching a lot of those Borscht Belt comedians you mentioned, and I've had the pleasure to write for a lot of the roast. And what happened at the Correspondence Dinner, for lack of better words, was not comedy. Comedy, as a whole, when it comes to writing jokes, their structure, that was basically just someone getting up there, and instead of using humor to elevate people, it was basically her goal was to destroy people. And I don't find that to be...
No, I don't even think the destroying people part of it was the worst part. It was the vile sickness of that bully's words. I watched it for 2 minutes and turned it off. She's a typical left-wing feminist potty mouth. Every other word out of her mouth is about a body part, about sex. That's what it was that turned me off. That's not funny, is it?
No, yeah, you're 100% right. As a whole, humor, I believe is meant to heal people, not hurt them. And you take someone like a Don Rickles, who you were mentioning before, who's an insult comedian. You actually felt great. It was an honor and a privilege to get ridiculed by him, because it was not meant to tear the person down. It was like, it was meant to actually heal in a healing way, to point.
In other words, he would find a certain foible or flaw of a personality, and he would magnify it without destroying the person, sort of, right?
100%. And that was the craft that the older comedians from the generation past knew how to do that. I was good friends with people like a Professor Irwin Corey, Will George.
So why do you think this generation of degenerate sickos can't do that anymore?
I think it has a large part to do with the fact that they have no moral compass. They lack boundaries. When it comes to writing jokes...
Wait, no, you're saying something interesting. In other words, when they start to riff or run on a stream of consciousness, there's no withholds on issues such as embarrassment or self-respect. They have no self-respect, so they can't be embarrassed.
100%. And just to build on that, I'm an observant Jew, and being bound by...
How can an observant Jew be a comedy writer? I mean, that's an oxymoronic concept.
Well, I'm also a conservative, so it's that's two whammies against.
Yeah, well, now I'll give you one. How much work do you get?
Not a whole heck of a lot.
Come on.
Yeah.
I don't think Hollywood's beating down your door.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I actually was performing in San Francisco about 2 years ago on Christmas, and I can't even tell you, I was doing 6 shows, and literally after every single show, I had to take out one joke after the next. In a town that considered itself to be very progressive and very liberal and open.
Well, what do you mean? You had to remove the jokes? Why?
Yes, because on the first night, the first show, I was making jokes. It was like in the Tenderloin area, And I was trying to make jokes about the mayor and this one and that one, and they said, you can't make fun of them. I'm like, what do you mean you can't make fun? I said,
oh, you mean the management of the club said you can't pick on Nancy Pelosi, you can't pick on the mayor, you can't pick on the homeless, you can't pick on the feces in the street, you can't pick on the corruption, you can't pick on the potholes and where's the billions of dollars going, like who's stealing the money for the highway funds. Those are not permissible, huh? Only attacking Trump, conservatives, and let us say Mormons.
Yeah, well, basically anything that does not offend them, which is basically everything. But I was supposed to do about a half hour. By the final show, I was only doing about 5 minutes, they asked.
I got to tell you this, Mike. I've lived in this city a long time. It is the meanest city on the planet. And another thing, driving in from the airport, from SFO back home, when I came home last week, I have never seen a major city with more destructively broken roads than in this city. I've been in Malaysia, the roads are better. Washington, D.C., the roads are better. There were no homeless bums in the Washington, D.C. that I saw, and I moved around quite a bit. I didn't see the bums. They were here and there, but they were not laying in the street. They were not accosting people. They were not defecating in the street. And this goes to the primary issue of our time. Any city that is run by super left-wingers like Pelosi, Feinstein, and you name them, is a city that is crumbling. It's as simple as that. And I don't understand how people can put two and two together. This is the dirtiest, most broken city in the United States, if not in the Western world.
Well, it's interesting because when I was there and I was pointing out things that were the truth, humor comes from the truth, being able to highlight,
All right, so here's a truth I wrote Saturday morning, right? Living in a decaying provincial city. Life goes on as it has, where the average person has less intelligence than a sea cucumber, the sea cucumber never having read any newspapers. Is that funny?
It's very funny. Could I use it?
It's a sarcastic line. The average person in San Francisco has less intelligence than a sea cucumber. Why? Because the sea cucumber never read any newspapers. I think that's a funny line. Notice there are no dirty words in it. Everything that I just said is true, and everybody knows it's a truth. Anyway, my friend, thank you for calling and joining the dialogue on the Savage Nation. I invite you to call. There's one open line at 855-407-2822. We're not limiting it to comedy because of the degenerate, filthy bully girl from the outhouse dinner the other night. We don't care about the degenerate, filthy bully girl.